What is yoga?
It's a way of life.
Way of life, very good, yeah. Union, yeah. So there are different connotations and definitions of yoga. The yoga that you all have been practicing here and which is more popular is what is called as Hatha Yoga. So that is involves more using the body and also the prana as a means to quieten the mind or work with the mind. But the most important aspect of yoga has to do with mind. And this is why one of the Yoga Sutras, one of the many most important Yoga Sutras that is taken as a definition for yoga comes from Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And that Sanskrit I will first say and I will translate it. It is called as Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. You all are familiar with that, right? Which basically means is yoga is a cessation of thought mind modifications, or yoga is a quietening of the mind, or yoga is this point where the mind reaches naturally this state of quiet. And then following that, right after that, Patanjali says, Tada Drishta Swarupa Avasthanam. Says, what that means is, after that you reach a state of being an observer, you can say. A state of natural Swarupa, that is our natural state, that state of being that Swarupa. But otherwise, if you don't establish in your natural state, what is this state? It is a state of continual activity, continual thought process. Which we are all familiar with. So just a little sideway. There was a son who went to a meditation camp, and he came back, and so his neighbor asked the father of that son who went to the meditation camp. Neighbor was asking, "Is your still son sitting around doing nothing?" Yeah. So I says, "No. These days he's doing meditation." So what does he do now? Oh, he sits around and does nothing. So it seems like, but there's a little difference here, even in this joke, there is a little difference. So the first time when you are sitting around doing nothing is what is called as a tamasic state, where you are just led away unconsciously and doing nothing. But when you're consciously sitting and doing nothing, that you have consciously kind of worked with your mind to reach this point where you're quietened, the thought activities of your mind and other things. But to reach this, there is a certain preparation, right? And so this is where the first Yoga Sutra, the very first Yoga Sutra, Atha Yoga Anushasana. It is like Atha is one word, Yoga Anushasana. That is the other word when you break it up. Okay, so basically what that does is, and here begins the practice of yoga or the discipline of yoga. Now it's just, yes, now it begins. But that means there is something that has happened before, right? So when you're saying now this starts, that obviously says that there's something that has happened before. And what is this that has happened before? And that you can ask yourself, what has made you all come here, right? Now this process, I'm going to use another text for this. This is called the Yoga Vasistha, and here they define 3 processes, where one comes to the point of preparation, or one comes to the stages of yoga, okay? And see, the first step, what they mention here, is that you need to have this intention. And what is this intention? It is this intention to turn the mind, which is naturally directed outward, towards activities, towards goal seeking, towards efforts, in the world, seeking pleasures, to that where it is reaching this inner state of quietness. And you might ask that, especially most of you are young people, what does that make a difference? I just want to be happy, I want to have fun, and things like that. Now, here is what happens, that the fun that we get from senses, from the objects of senses, like through our ears, eyes, and nose, smell, taste, and all that, right? Now, these objects, if you really look at it, where do you experience the joy of that?
In our heart.
Huh?
In our mind.
In your mind. Very good. Yes. We feel that our happiness is basically based on three things. One is what is called as this Desha Kala Vastu. It is there at certain time, certain place, or in certain object.
Yeah.
You know. But if you really look at the nature of this, these all have limitations. You know, so what you experience today, like if you had this beautiful gulab jamun or pizza or whatever, right? It is at that moment. Right? It is in that moment, that place, that time, at that object. But that is limited. In the next moment, it is not there. Right? But that experience of that lingers on. And that, where is it lingering it on? Where is it? In our mind. So this mind is the place where we actually experience that joy. So even this memory of that gulab jamun, or tomorrow when you go back, like some good moments you had here, where will you experience that? Yes, you'll experience that in your mind. So the mind becomes the place where we actually is the place where all these joys, sorrows and everything is experienced. And so this preparation of this mind, right, is the first thing. And to do that, we have to have this intention where we turn away from looking at objects or sense objects alone as a place of our joy to this turning within. And the second part of this is what is called as this Shubhecha, Shubha Icha. This is one of the first aspect, one of the first steps. It is this thing where you are actually wanting to have the deeper well-being of yourself. Not just of yourself, but also of your loved ones and everyone around. This intention arises in your mind that, may I be happy? May people around me be happy. Because you realize that happiness in itself is the most precious thing in the world. It is not so much that car that we want to have or this video game we are having. Because what happens is, assume that you have a favorite movie. I don't know which movie is the current favorite movie. But assuming whichever one is a popular movie, right? And you're craving to watch that movie, but you're tired at night, then you're feeling sleepy, and somebody says, "Come, let's watch this movie." Even though that is your favorite movie, that object is so pleasurable. What you want to do is you want to sleep, you want to take rest. So that is why, it is not the object that is important, it is really that mind. And if you cultivate this positive intention, then the turning around happens. That switching from the mind which is looking outward into objects as a source of happiness to turning inward and looking out, working with that mind itself. And then this thing of limitation of Desha Kala Vastu no longer becomes a limitation. You can have happiness anytime, anywhere, with anything, at will. And so this is the sense of independence that we get when we work with the mind. And so the preparation for this is also given in how we go through this process. Okay, and you all are familiar with this, but I will just write it down also. But I'll talk briefly of the second part in this, what I call as Shubhecha. The second part, what you have actually done in order to come here, unconsciously or consciously, is called as Vichara. Okay. Anyone knows what Vichara is?
Thought process.
Thought process, yeah.
Vision.
Like goal.
Goal. But see, what Vichara is very similar to what we said in our prayer. We said in our prayer, Asatoma Sadkamaya. May I go from unreality to reality.
Intention.
It's intention, but it is this process of discernment or discrimination, you can say. You are moving from what is real, what is unreal, to what is real. What seems like darkness, a place of unhappiness, to wanting to move to a place of happiness. You are discriminating between what is like fleeting, impermanent, and temporary to what is lasting, what is more of value for you. So this is a discriminating process. And you are doing it because even the moment you choose to come here to Arogya Yoga School in Rishikesh, leaving your home and giving the time here, you have prioritized that something here is deeper. Something that I get at Arogya here in Rishikesh is deeper than what you are getting at your home. You unconsciously done that. But what our Yoga Sutras and what Yoga Vasishtha and all are saying is, if you learn how to do it consciously, you can speed up this process. And this is where again the, like some of the teachings of ancient India, such as like the teachings of Buddha and all that, where he said like everything in life that you see relatively, it is impermanent. So if you invest your happiness in those objects, like as we were talking before, like if you just invest your happiness in places, people, situations and all that, and not in your own self, then very soon, sometimes sooner or later, you're going to be disappointed. So understanding this, just having an idea of this is a good starting place. Okay. So now I will outline to you these steps. Okay, the steps is very clear. You probably are familiar with this. The moment I write the first one, maybe most of you, I'm going to write it in English. Yama. Okay. So the next one, anyone knows? Niyama. Okay. Unless we have that necessary preparation, you can't get to the heart of yoga, which is the yogas chitta vritti nirodha. So to get to that, we have all this preparation that's going on. And this preparation, which is yama niyama, which is the right way of living, which also we talked about now, having this right intention, all this turning of the mind and all, like the discrimination and all that. And then the biggest obstacle for us is the body. The body doesn't want to sit. The body has so much whether, especially at younger age, at my age, it's not so much of an issue with that, but like the hormonal activity of body, the adrenaline is running so high, right? So you want to do a lot of stuff. So that is where the yama, the asana, pranayama. So from this point of pratyahara, the whole kind of energy that was directed outward starts directing inward, where you're trying to change and quieten this mental processes. Okay. So here, let me just come back to this. Now, so here what happens is, to give you an illustration, when we are going for a race, you're standing at that point, and there is persons with a still or whatever he says, ready, set, go, says, right? So that is how we are all trained. Like moment, okay, we'll wake up in the morning, do this, okay, what do we do? But now when we do meditation, it's the other way around. It says ready, set, stop. Okay, so you are basically trying to stop that mental activity that's going on and sit, just trying to do the sit process. Okay. So here, now we will actually do this a little practically. Okay, we will actually practice meditation, but I want to just talk a little bit about this Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi first. What happens in our Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi is that in this process, we first sometimes think that this is what is called the third step. I was talking to you about Shubecha and Vicharana. There's a third step, and that is called as Tanumanasa. Tanumanasa, what this means is it is called the subtlety of mind, where your mind starts becoming a little more ability to experience the subtle things of life. You can take it at one point spiritually. We can call it as we can start feeling energy in the body. We can start hearing some sound or seeing the light and all those things, which a lot of yogis have talked about, they've written about. But you can think of it in very simple ways. This, at some point of time, like when you're going through, you feel a sense of peace in your mind. Or at some point, some things without anything, just maybe looking at Ganga, looking at the Himalayas, you may feel a sense of joy. That is because your mind has become subtle to appreciate that. What if somebody does something kind to you, or if you want to do something kind to somebody, or even it is actually said in the Shastras, like the sight of looking a sannyasi walking, or some meditator, or being in the presence of somebody who exudes some sense of peace, you feel happy. So all that, is actually the subtlety of mind. And that's why in our tradition too, originally, like we were, generally you see a wise person or something, you bow to them or you give them something and all that. Of course, it doesn't have to be literally, at least mentally, if you have a sense of appreciation for that, right? Your mind will actually start seeing beauty in that. If you don't have a sense of appreciation, if you just focused on the gross objects of happiness, right? Then you will not appreciate these finer things in life. The more we train our mind to appreciate these finer things, the more it comes to the state of subtlety where you can appreciate this joy. And then all these three things, dharana and dhyana, and of course samadhi, it becomes a little more easier. Dharana is this process of single-pointedness, of focus. Right? And now, for example, what is the trait you see in the people who are most successful in life? May it be Sachin Tendulkar or P.V. Sindhu or something.
They have goal,
Ambition, goal, yes.
Hard work.
Yeah. So the focus is one important thing, because unless you have focus, all these other things will not follow. What you were saying, somebody said hard work, master in one. See, you have to have focus in something. The trait of a person who is really successful in anything is this ability to focus on something.
You can say purpose.
Purpose also. But purpose, one way, drives focus, and focus drives purpose. It works out. To sometimes have purpose, you have to have done these other aspects which we talked about. Vicharana and Sudecha and all that. And you should also have some sense of niyama, yama, niyama, or else your purpose might be something like how Hitler had a purpose. So that kind of purpose is not helping us, it's not helping anyone else. So when we do these proper steps of vicharana, and when we have a positive intention, right, our purpose becomes something that will strengthen us, it will strengthen everyone around us as well. And so this very process of going through this will automatically help us with focus when we have gone through these kind of steps. And then comes dhyana. Okay, so the dhyana is of course something, as I said again, we have to practice. So the idea with meditation is what I told other time with Patanjali Yoga Sutra, tada trishtu swarupa avasthanam. We abide in that sense of observer.